For some of you, you are wasting your time. You're wasting your money, you're wasting your energy, and by doing so, you are also causing yourself not to be able to grow and take on more customers or more clients. But you're probably wondering, what am I talking about? Hey, badass business owners, my name is Tammy, and I'm here to help you grow your business, but more importantly, grow those profits. And for those of you that have been listening to me for a while, you've heard me talk about this 5-mile rule or the 5-mile radius. But what does that mean? And for those of you that are new, this is an important lesson for you to learn. That is this: when we start a business, we typically will take any business from anywhere to get our foot in the door. And I'm okay with that because you know what? You got to get those customers, you got to get the experience, you got to get the practice. But what ends up happening is you accidentally get yourself into a situation to where you are chasing business all over the place. I mean, you're taking a half hour to an hour to somebody's house, then you're turning around and driving another 45 minutes to somewhere else. Or even worse, some of you are going so far away, but yet the supplies and everything you need are even further away. And you're just wasting so much time driving around. And what needs to happen is over time, you need to pull that radius in. But the other time that I hear people doing this is when they want to expand their business. They kind of feel like they've tapped out the market, if you will. So then they're like, well, I'm going to go into this city and that city, and I'm going to grow, or I'm going to focus over here. And they think that that's the right thing for them to do for their business as well. Well, I want to tell you, and I want to show you some ideas of why that is not the most practical thing for the majority of you to do. For some of you, it might make sense. But let's talk about some of the reasons why you need to think this through. First off, if you have a brick and mortar business, okay, first and foremost, you can't drive to other people. And if you really look at big box retailers and other companies, when they go to a location, they specifically do a lot of research because they have learned that people have a certain amount of miles that they're willing to drive. And in most cases, it's 5 miles. They don't want to drive that far. And depending upon the area, 5 miles can go really fast. And for some people, 5 miles can take forever, based off of the traffic patterns of the particular city. So what they do is they focus those locations with in mind that they're going to get the clients within that time frame, the customers that live in that area. So if you have a brick and mortar, one of the challenges I would ask you is, do you even know what's within 5 miles of your area? And it's so easy to do today on Google Maps. You can just drop a pin and try to figure out what's within that radius. And are you doing everything to go after them? But it's not just about that 5-mile radius, because you might have an upper end type of product or service that you offer, but yet within the first mile or two, you are looking at a bunch of folks that just don't have the type of money that you need for your business, in which case your 5 miles is already cut off and you're not collecting any of the people that are around you. That's why you always hear location, location, location. And it's important that you start your business not where you get your cheapest rent, but where you have the ability to pick up that customer who's willing to use your products or services. When you start a service-based business, same thing. You may live in an area that would never in a million years use your services, in which case, where does your 5-mile radius actually begin? And where are you going to focus that on? And a lot of people, they keep getting upset because they're trying to chase within a certain area, and they realize that, yes, it might be close to you, but you end up driving far, far away because those are the folks that are actually truly using your services, in which case maybe that needs to be the start of your 5 miles. But at the end of the day, the goal is to try to concentrate your business in this 5-mile area. Could be a little bit bigger based off of your location, but for the most people within that area, that's where you want to concentrate. The other thing you're probably going to find is you need to find out how many people even live in that area. Sometimes I will do the numbers with some people and they're like, well, you don't understand. I've got to go over to this area because I just don't have the people that live where I'm servicing. And yet when we run the numbers and we look at the number of households and we divide out how many customers they've done, this comes out they've got maybe 5% of the entire marketplace. Now, it might be that you are so specific that you can only get 5% of your area within that 5 miles. But for most of you, that is not the case. If you take pools, for example, if you're here in Arizona, you can throw a rock and hit a house that has a pool. plenty of business here in the local area. Even though there might be tons of different pool people turn those over all the time because they don't have the person. So you got to continue to market. Same thing with air conditioning, huge in Arizona, not necessarily somewhere else. It might be the heat somewhere else. A pool person in another area might have something different, but same thing. If you do gutters, it's the opposite. We really don't have any gutters, but yet you go to some of the other areas that have high rainfall, and a gutter business is perfect because there's tons of gutters in that area. So you need to make sure that where you're trying to run your business is exactly where the customers who want to spend the money in your business. Now, part of the reason why you want to stay in that area is because, one, you're not driving all over the place. I've heard of people. So, for example, if you take where I live, right, if you're going to go outside of the town or the city, then you are driving at minimum half hour to 45 minutes to get to those other places. Now, keep in mind, that's a half hour, 45 minutes there and a half hour, 45 minutes back, not to mention any additional time. So you have to ask yourself, if I'm going to commit to an hour and a half to 2 hours for this customer, how many other customers could I fit into that time slot that are going to cost me a lot less? Because think about it, when I'm driving all over Tarnation, I'm also spending gas money, I'm also spending time, I'm also spending wear and tear on my vehicles. And if you have hourly employees, a lot of you're paying people to also be in their vehicle versus helping customers. We really need to slow this down. Now, sometimes you wake up, like I said, accidentally, and you've gotten yourself into this situation, because once again, we're taking all the customers we can possibly get in the beginning, and next thing you know, we've woken up and we're all over the place. Now, the best way to handle that is to at least group things, that if you're going to go to a particular city, try to book all of your people on that day and just say, look, I'll be in your area on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are the days that I book. Well, can you please just do it on a Wednesday? And sorry, those are the days that we do it. And people will get used to it. They'll accept it. If they want to use you, they're going to do that. And you're like, well, Tammy, I'm going to lose business. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. Because if you lose that person, this frees up 1 to 2 slots for people that are in your more local area. Especially for those of you that have long wait times. That's the one that really cracks me up, is I'll have people that will tell folks, oh yeah, we're booked out 3-4 weeks. And yet they will chase all that. And meanwhile, they're just turning away so much business in their local area because they are going to these other locations and to these far away things. And I want you just to look at your business. What is the business you're turning away? For some of you, the way you got into driving 10, 15 miles away is because people were calling you and nobody would come out to their location. Once again, that's fine as long as you set a day to maximize the amount of business that you're going to do in that particular area. Trust me, if somebody lives in the middle of nowhere, they're used to having to wait for everybody to come service that area. Matter of fact, when we were doing the Home Depots, that 5-mile radius in remote locations didn't work as well because you were having a lot of people that were coming 2, 3, 4 hours of a drive. But what they did is they stacked all the businesses onto that trip. So it wasn't uncommon for them to go to Walmart, Home Depot, Costco, all their favorite haunts in that particular location, all in one day. So, not saying never do further away areas, just saying doing it smartly. Because once again, this is all about you making more money, right? We want you to increase your sales, but we don't want your sales to come at a cost. If you're helping people further away, and at the end of the day, you're making less money on them because of these additional costs and time, it doesn't make sense for you to do those, especially if you're working with smaller margins or you're just not making as much money on each individual thing that you offer or provide for those customers. So you got to figure out, what else can I add? What are some add-ons? What's going to make it worth my time to drive out that way? And by the way, it's okay to charge more for that. There are people that I talk to that the people beg them to stay with them. And they're like, man, it's just not worth my time and energy. Then increase the price to a price that would make it worth your time and energy. What are you giving up by doing it? And explain it to the customer and say, look, honestly, this is a very difficult thing for me. And, I want to help you, but the people I leave on the table to not be able to help because of how far away you are and what I need to do, I'd have to charge you an extra $100, $200, whatever, to do it. And they might just surprise you and go, do it. I just need your services. I want you to do it. I need you to take care of it. You'd be surprised at what people that are further away are willing to pay for that. Now, you're not trying to gouge them. You're not trying to go after them, but you're giving them the option, because at the end of the day, you still have to take care of business. So I really want you to start thinking of what's within that 5 miles, that 10 miles. Try to keep it within 5, but every area is a little bit different. More heavy concentrated housing, 5 miles is more than enough. If homes are spread out a little bit more, you may have to push that 10 miles. But what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to have so much business locally that you're turning it away because you're driving all over the place. I also don't want you to think that, oh, I've tapped out. I need to go 30 an hour away from my place to re-jump my business to make more. When the reality is that's probably not true. I have yet to sit down with somebody that had a good market share before they went for another area. They just saw dollar signs like, I can go into this city and I can make money. And that might be true, but is that the right thing for your business? You might be able to get really busy doing that, but could you make that same amount of money working a lot less hours, helping a lot more people in your local community? But what happens is it gets hard and we throw up our hands. Or we say, well, there's so many people that do what I do and I just can't get ahead. No, you're just not differentiating yourself from these other people. You need to look at your marketing. You need to look at your word of mouth. You need to look at your business and how it's viewed within the community. Have you separated yourself out? A lot of times people go, well, there's other people that are so much cheaper than I am and I just can't get any jobs. You think that there's not cheap people in the other area? There absolutely is. There's going to be people that will always give away their services and always undercharge because they just don't know what to charge. So you can't just jump into another city without understanding the why behind why you can't grow your business in your current area and where you currently are located. And I really want you to think about these things as you're determining, can I grow my business? Do I need to go somewhere else? Do I need to chase something else? In most cases, you do not need to do that. And once again, if you're a brick and mortar type business, you've got to figure out, am I strategically using my marketing? If I know that people are only willing to drive that 5 miles, maybe 10 miles, then if I throw out advertising, I shouldn't blanket everywhere, right? No, what I should do is I should pick neighborhoods that have the higher odds of having people that are willing to use and want to use my location. Because every community, every neighborhood, every subdivision is built on different types of individuals, and you want to know where are my best odds that I'm going to get those people to use my business. And that's really what you're shooting for and what you're trying to get. All right, I've gone over a lot of different things. Hopefully something in here has really resonated with you, and you can say, wow, you know what? I really need to look at how I'm spending my time, the business that I'm chasing, the money that I'm spending, and am I focused on the right areas to really be successful? Because remember, it's not just about sales. It's about profitable sales. And if your sales are not profitable when you're driving all over the place, or you're having to turn away local customers because of where you're going, they're just not profitable for you. You can make a lot more money by focusing on the areas that we're talking about. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And just a reminder, by the way, because we are now beginning of September, I have no idea where this year has gone. Make sure that if you haven't already, you know me and your business numbers, you need to make sure that you're getting those things cleaned up, that you know the numbers so you can run your business. But more importantly, pretty soon, tax time is going to be upon you and you're going to be chasing a whole year's worth of stuff that you haven't taken care of. So make sure you do that as well. All right. With that, I'm out of here. Make sure you look at your 5 mile radius, know what's going on, and I will talk to you next time. Bye for now.